Okay, let's talk about movies. This summer, the New York Times put out a list of the top 100 movies of the 21st century. It prompted furious debate about what movies stand the test of time, why they matter, and what those movies tell us about ourselves. From the New York Times, I'm Natalie Kitroeff. This is The Daily. Kyle, welcome to the show. It is really wonderful to be talking to you about movies at this time when the news has just been coming at us like a fire hose every single day. Thank you for this.
I'm happy to provide that relief.
You've been covering this industry for what, 2 decades or something like that, Kyle?
Yes, I started as a child prodigy, if that's what you're getting at.
Exactly, yeah. You started
decades.
at the age of 5, as we know.
Exactly.
Here you are, 25 years old, talking to us here at The Daily. Okay, we are here to discuss something really ambitious that you and your colleagues at the Culture Desk did this summer, which is that you ranked the top 100 movies of the 21st century. And this is coming at a pretty interesting time for the movies. Some might say it's not the best moment for the movies, for the craft, for the business. And yet you put out this list and people kind of lost their minds. Millions of people read it. It was commented upon. There were TikTok videos made about it. There was a separate reader list that we will get to. It was a thing, is the point.
It was a massive thing, and honestly, very encouraging for me as somebody who loves movies to see just how strongly people responded to this. As you said, I think there's been some debate recently over, the art form of movies. Have movies lost their cultural influence? They used to feel so primary when it came to art. And I think this poll, this reaction to it, is kind of a refutation of that. It proves movies still matter.
And I think one of the things that made this list really special is how you actually constructed it. You called these 500 filmmakers, actors, writers, directors, and asked them to tell you what their favorites were. And The Daily actually called some of them and had some pretty amazing conversations about it. So first of all, should I call you Steve?
You should call me Steve. That's
okay.
Just don't call me late to dinner. Well, my name is Stephen King.
Hi, my name is Celine Song.
I'm Molly Ringwald.
Hey, I'm Gina Prince Bythewood.
I'm Benny Safdie.
Okay, how'd you collect all of these ballots?
Basically, we went to about 500 people who work in the movie industry and around it, and we asked them to submit their ballots for what they thought were the 10 best movies released since January 1st, 2000. And we really went after an eclectic group of people. We have the director and the star of the last Best Picture winner, that'd be Sean Baker, who made Anora, and Mikey Madison, who starred in it. We have other movie stars, Julianne Moore, Tilda Swinton, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and an incredible array of Oscar-winning directors like Pedro Almodovar, Sofia Coppola, Guillermo del Toro, Cord Jefferson. It's a really exciting list, and as those ballots came in, I couldn't wait to see what they'd picked.
Anything that makes me want to choose it because it's going to make me look cool, I won't choose.
There's a part of you that just wants to pick the ones that nobody else picked. But I didn't do that. I actually picked the ones that I thought were really the best.
And really the most exciting thing for me has been to see how many different people interpret that prompt. The idea of what are my 10 favorite movies, or are they 10 best, or are they 10 most serious, or 10 funniest, that can be anything to you.
I'll start with Moonlight.
In Moonlight, black boys look blue.
I just remember being so still at the end of it. I didn't want to move.
Brokeback Mountain, I think, was one that I remember just being floored by in the movie theater.
So what we got now is Brokeback Mountain.
If I'm channel surfing and one of these movies comes up, I will stay and watch it.
It was really, at the end of the day, a guttural drive that got me to that 10 films that really meant something to me and changed my life.
In putting this ballot together, you're telling a story about yourself. You know, the ballot is indicating something about your sensibility. Even more than that, unconsciously, you're telling the story of your last 25 years. You know, the 25 years that you've experienced, the movies that you've watched, the things that really stick to you that maybe you saw 23 years ago, but you can't stop thinking about them. That says something about you. And I think what's really been gripping about this is that these ballots, even more than just revealing something about the state of the movie industry, can reveal something about ourselves.
Okay, so you've had time to analyze the list. What do you see when you look at this list?
There's movies that you wouldn't have expected to make the list or make it as highly as they did. And then there's things that I thought were no-brainers that were absolutely going to make the 100 that were left off totally. And also, in addition to that, a lot of revealing themes that tell their own story of where the film industry has gone over the last 25 years.
Okay, obviously we're not going to be able to go through all 100 movies, but I am very excited to get into this. Let's talk about a category you wouldn't have expected to be on there.
Honestly, I didn't think we'd see as many comedies as we saw, and I was delighted to see that we saw them. There are movies like Bridesmaids.
You know what? Why can't you just be happy for me and then go home and talk behind my back later like a normal person?
Borat.
This is my country of Kazakhstan.
Best in Show.
Yeah, we both have so much in common. We both love soup.
Even Anchorman.
I'm Ron Burgundy? Damn it! Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter?
And I don't know that necessarily we would have expected those, because when you give people a prompt like this, maybe the assumption is they default to prestige movies, you know, big Oscar-venerated classics. You know, comedies at the Oscars often get short shrift, and I was pleased to see that on our list, they were well represented. Even somebody like Julianne Moore, who we think of as the actress who would star in the prestige drama, is picking movies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin on her ballot.
I saw that. Amazing.
I loved that. You know, I loved the idiosyncrasies that we all have, if we're being honest, about what art we respond to, and I really appreciated that people were honest about those things.
I want to talk about Superbad. It's the first one you see when you kind of open the list up. And I think that one is kind of important because it's the one where you say, like, wow, I guess I'm surprised to see that this movie is in the top 100 of the 21st century. And yet, it's a movie where I can remember specific scenes from it. I really connected with it. What do you make of that one being on here?
I mean, I was surprised too, but I think it's part of the fun of the list. You know, when people are thinking of best movies, sometimes they're thinking of movies they've only watched once. Sometimes those movies are so harrowing, you'd only want to watch them once.
Right.
And so you'd expect to be encountering that when you open up this list. And instead, number 100 is Superbad.
McLovin? What kind of a stupid name is that, Fogel? What, are you trying to be an Irish R&B singer?
That is a film that, honestly, I think once you see it on this list, it maybe hopefully recontextualizes how you think of this film. But ultimately, you know, this is a movie that the fans of it have watched countless times and honestly minted a whole new generation of stars, including Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, and Emma Stone, who, you know, this is a movie that's turbocharged her. That was one of the defining teen movies of its generation, I would say, alongside Mean Girls, which I wish had made the list, deserved.
I know. Huge snub. Okay, so what other patterns did you notice here?
I saw a lot of auteur filmmakers through this list. You know, honestly, there's a handful of people who made movies on this list that take up a really outsized portion, almost a quarter of the 100.
Okay, so just define auteur filmmakers for those of us who may not know exactly what it means.
Yeah, an auteur filmmaker is typically a writer-director. It's somebody who has such a personal vision or a distinctive style that, you know, you could essentially call them the author of the movie.
And what are some movies? I understand you're saying a lot of the ones on the list are made by people like that, but give me some examples of movies that fit that bill.
Well, for example, you know, there's 4 movies on this list that are made by the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan Coen. You know, they've made No Country for Old Men, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Inside Llewyn Davis, A Serious Man. They have these films that they're shot a certain way. They tend to have, you know, a similar bench of actors. And also there's just all these language idiosyncrasies that you find in their movies. Maybe even when they're playing with genre, you're seeing, you know, different themes and ideas keep cropping up. I think that's the mark of a true auteur.
Right. You know when you're watching a Coen Brothers film, right?
Yes, just as you know when you're watching something by David Lynch or even Christopher Nolan, who has the most movies on this list with 5.
And what do you make of that, Nolan's overwhelming presence on this list?
I think it's a true sign that if anybody could be regarded as the Spielberg of this century, it's Chris Nolan, who manages to make studio movies like The Dark Knight and Inception that feel highbrow, that feel like there's something to them, and that connect in a major way with audiences.
One movie I immediately noticed was Mulholland Drive. It's number 2 on the list. David Lynch film, an auteur filmmaker. I want to talk about that one because while this movie is not my favorite, just to get that out there, to admit that, I was so amazed and really happy that it was so high on this list, in part because I felt like, wow, this is a weird film, and yet it connected with so many people. Like, so many people out there loved this kind of really strange, dreamlike piece of art.
It's not a movie that's for everybody, but I can guarantee you that everybody will have their own unique reaction to that movie. I think that you could make the case that Mulholland Drive is too highbrow. If people didn't connect with it, that's probably the pejorative that they would fling.
I think I'm going to get that. My editors are telling me that that I am lowbrow for not getting it. So I agree.
We're all allowed to be a little lowbrow. And honestly, at the same time, even if you don't like Mulholland Drive, there's going to be images, vibes, scenes, and ideas from it that stick with you forever.
Yeah.
It's not a movie that can be easily forgotten. I think that's part of the reason it showed up on this list. Even its haters were somewhat transfixed by what that movie was putting forward, and the people who really love it, it's everything to them.
And we talked to the actor Ebon Moss-Bachrach about this.
My name is Ebon Moss-Bachrach. First of all, Mulholland Drive, number 2 on the list. I can't tell you. It's so affirming that this great artist, David Lynch, and his unique renderings of the world and darkness and this sort of beguiling dream logic, that so many people felt moved by this movie to vote for it. I mean, like, number 2, David Lynch, I mean, I feel like he would be shocked. What I like in a movie is not knowing what's going to happen from one moment to the next. I am more interested in sitting in the theater with a bunch of people and everyone having an experience and nobody knows where anything is going to go. And certainly in Mulholland Drive and all of David Lynch's work, you're taken on a ride that, like, you really don't know where you're going.
Man's attitude goes some ways, the way his life will be. Is that something you might agree with?
Sure.
Okay, Kyle, let's hear the rest of the top 10.
Yeah, number 10 is The Social Network. That's David Fincher's film about the founding of Facebook. Number 9 is Spirited Away, which is the highest placing animated movie on our list. Number 8 is Get Out. Number 7,
so
Eternal.
good.
So good, and I was thrilled that it was in the top 10. Number 7 is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Number 6, No Country for Old Men from
On my
the Coen
list.
Brothers.
On my
was
list.
that on your ballot too?
Yes.
Number 5, Moonlight. Number 4, In the Mood for Love from Wong Kar-wai. Number 3, There Will Be Blood from the director Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. Incredible. And number 2 was Mulholland Drive. Number 1 was Parasite.
창문 닫아.
나도 봐. 공짜로 집안에 소독도 하고 곱등도 없애고.
Okay, let's get into Parasite. I want to know why you think, I mean, you were getting at this, but why you think it is number 1. What about that movie resonated so widely?
Well, Parasite was the first movie not in English to win the Best Picture Oscar. And I think the reasons that it triumphed there have only become more pronounced in the year since it came out. In addition to just being a damn good movie, Parasite is about pretty much all of the issues that we're contending with on a daily basis right now. In particular, that wealth gap, that feeling that, the boundary between classes is only getting worse and we're only suffering more and it's stripping away our humanity. That's something that we felt in 2019 when Parasite came out. That's something we only feel more acutely about now. It is a film that felt prescient at the time, that speaks to our current moment even better than it did when it came out.
Totally. I mean, and when you think about Parasite, a movie that is quite literally about class war in the most violent sense, it sort of feels like it's not just capturing, inequities baked into Korean society. It's telling us something about the world. I mean, clearly, because it's number one for hundreds of people.
Honestly, in the specific, you find the universal. And I think the films that made the list, especially the films that placed highly on this list, are a good example of that. Yes, Parasite is very specifically about this section of South Korean society, but who can't relate to that?
Right.
Just as even, some of the stranger films on this list, there's something that you feel, something you respond to that tells you something about your own life.
Molly Ringwald and I talked about Parasite and how the movie made her feel.
I remember where I saw it, and I remember I was in Topanga Canyon at the time, and I was watching it with my husband, and I really didn't know anything about it.
나름 운치가 있네. 정원에는 비가 촤. 우린 위스키를 촤.
There is that long sequence. They're walking in the house in the and the basement, and I remember going down a hallway, and then when you discover this family living in the house, I remember both my husband and I were just, what? Oh my God, then you're just completely focused. And there's just not that many movies, I think, that do that on that level.
Kyle, we've talked about what is on the list. I want to talk about what's not on the list. Among the omissions that we at the Daily noticed, besides for Mean Girls, which, I mean, frankly,
Justice for Mean Girls.
I can't believe it, is that there aren't a lot of superhero movies. What do you make of that?
There are two. We have Black Panther and The Dark Knight on this list. I think it's an indication that the movie has to be really, really good to stand the test of time, especially, a lot of superhero storytelling. It's meant to set up the next chapter, right? These are essentially cliffhangers. They've got post-credit scenes saying, go to this movie, go to this movie. Maybe at a certain point, it all starts to blur together. So what are the truly unique visions that come out of this corporate studio mandated superhero storytelling? Is it even possible to make a film that feels especially unique when you're serving all of those corporate mandates? It isn't easy to make an action film that feels distinctive. There are only a couple people who are even capable of wielding the camera like that. So when you see superhero films made by Christopher Nolan and Ryan Coogler, that those are the only two movies that made this list, well, think of the men who made those, Those
Right.
are true auteurs. Those are two of the people who you'd be most excited to see a new movie by. They're people with a point of view.
The director, Gina Prince Bythewood, talked to us about Black Panther and how that vision and the representation in that movie influenced her.
Black Panther is just absolutely reset the game.
Let the challenge begin.
And certainly for Black filmmakers and Black artists, he was able to infuse so much culture into the Marvel universe, and most studios shy away from that because they feel like cultural specificity pushes people away, but it actually pulls them in, it draws you in, and it makes these stories feel fresh. And Ryan just put so much of our culture in such a beautiful way on such a beautiful big canvas, at the same time telling a story where we care deeply about both the hero and the villain. Like my two sons, they loved Killmonger, and I could understand why. But to see my sons walk out of a theater, I think they were 12 and 15 at the time, with their chests out and their shoulders back, I mean, that's an amazing thing for them to be able to see themselves reflected like that. Yeah, he just took Marvel and twisted it and made it into something absolutely worthy of praise.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. Because they knew death was better than bondage.
A line like that in a Marvel film, it was ridiculous, and the power of that. And again, to see the emotion, not only for my husband and I, who could fully understand that statement, but my sons as well.
I wanted to bring up that the highest ranking version, I think, of this thing you're talking about, where it's like an auteur blockbuster type of movie, is Mad Max Fury Road. You wrote a book on this movie. I could not believe the passion that this movie elicited when I talked to people in the industry about it. So what do you think it was about this particular action movie that made people feel so strongly about it?
I just don't think there's any action movie like it, and I don't think there ever will be again. You know, I think that's a particularly interesting thing to note, because that movie was the product of a singular visionary, the director George Miller, but also the way it was made, where it was shot on location with real car crashes. Yes, there were special effects aiding everything, but the amount of doing it for real is something you simply do not get at this scale and will not get at this scale, I think, ever again. Almost everything is shot on green screen or, you know, in much more studio managed environments. Whereas for as fantastical as Mad Max Fury Road is, when you see somebody fall off a car or a car flips over, you think, wow, I just watched people die. It is visceral in a way that almost nothing is anymore. Most every superhero tentpole or action tentpole we watch right now, I'm not feeling very much, because I think that car was computer generated and I'm just watching two people slug each other who aren't feeling anything and do not bleed. Whereas Mad Max Fury Road, I felt everything and continue to. Even after having written a book about it, I could watch that and still be transported.
Amazing. You're making me want to go watch it right now.
Good. That was my whole mission doing this podcast.
Success.
It's just the most imaginative thing that you've ever seen. The world building of it, the philosophy of it, and then it's just like every piece of writing in it is just perfect. And every camera movement is perfect. Like everything about it is just like completely perfect. Like I think we all feel like we're all on Fury Road. And I think every day we feel deeper and deeper into Fury Road. We're turning our world into a desert, right? I mean, I just don't trust anybody who says they don't like that movie or they don't think it's very good. I'm like, do you like movies? I'm like, if someone says they're like, oh, I don't really get Fury Road. I'm like, oh, you don't like movies. It's not you don't like it.
Okay, obviously Black Panther and Fury Road are these huge action blockbusters, but those are not the norm on this list, as we've said. And I think people who see that might say, well, sure, Hollywood insiders made this list. They're kind of the elite. It's not surprising they didn't choose, superhero movies. What would you say to that?
Well, what I found very surprising is that ultimately we put together a separate poll. That poll was drawn from the reader ballots. When people were given the ability to craft their own ballot, eventually those ballots got tabulated into their own master list of over 200,000 ballots from the readers.
Wow.
So something that you would think would be...
200,000.
Yeah, something that you would think would be maybe more populist or reflect different sensibilities. And we did see some differences. But what I was struck by is that a lot of those so-called highbrow films that are in the Hollywood top 10, we also found in the reader top 10. In fact, we had rolled out the ability to cast your own ballot long before we'd revealed the top 20 movies on the Hollywood list, which we did in batches of 20 every day. And even, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, as people were casting their ballots, I was so struck to see both Parasite and Mulholland Drive leading the reader ballot poll. And many of those same films, like No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, The Social Network, also in the top 10 for the readers. Yes, there is more of a willingness to embrace action movies and genre fare. You've got both Dune movies on the reader list. You have all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, but not many more superhero movies, although you do see Avengers Endgame in the number 100 slot on the reader's list.
What were some of the other similarities you noticed between the 2 lists?
Well, again, you might expect a reader's list to reflect, the current trends, which, it's let's be real, the streaming landscape has upended almost everything about our culture. But at the same time, there were no streaming movies in the top 100 of the reader's list.
Wow. And in the Hollywood list?
Only one on the Hollywood list, Roma by Alfonso Cuarón, who was one of the most represented filmmakers on the Hollywood list. But I think for the readers to not be choosing streaming movies may be an indication of how little they're really watching those movies when they watch them. You can fire up something on streaming and be on your phone. You can be live tweeting it. You can be checking your Instagram. You can be doing laundry and folding it as something plays out in the background. Certainly a lot of television shows, a lot of streaming TV shows with the filler they've got have trained people to maybe only half watch at times. And I don't think that's the experience that people are going to remember when they're thinking about their favorite movies of the last 25 years. Like I said, that theatrical experience can put such an impressive thumbprint on your memory of the movie. And I'm not sure that streaming can replicate that.
But it's so interesting because this is something that came up a lot in the conversations that I had with, the filmmakers and the actors and the writers, is that pretty much all of them said that their favorite movies were ones they had seen on the big screen. And obviously these are people that literally do this for a living. But I too, remember where I was when I saw, some of my favorite movies physically. Like I could tell you what row I was in. And I just wonder if there's something about that, the physical experience, the communal experience, that makes it different substantively.
Well, can I answer your question with a question, Natalie?
Oh, yes, you may.
If you had to put a movie that would be your no-brainer pick on your own ballot of 10, what do you remember about the experience of watching that movie?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked, because this was not on the list, but Uncut Gems is the one I would put on there.
Uncut Gems, number 58 on our list, was not nominated for any Oscars, but made that list over many other films that won Oscars that year.
I saw that movie in the second row of the theater, and it was such an intense, propulsive movie that being where I was in the theater made it feel like I was like in a car that had no brakes and I was speeding down the highway. It was just overwhelming as an experience. My friend told me she has a picture of me. She saw it with me in the movie, just to speak to the communal part of this, at the very end of it, with my hands like over my face, just kind of like grabbing my face, because it was palpable, the energy of it.
And I think that energy is what you remember, right? That wouldn't be the same if you watched it on streaming. You'd still think that was a great movie,
right?
But there is just something about that time signature experience of seeing that in a theater. And this list is a real tribute to that.
You would go into the theater and forget yourself.
The lights go down, you're with people.
You would become part of the movie. You would be scared for the people in the movie, or you would laugh with people in the movie.
I feel like seeing a movie in the theater, there's nothing like it, because it's a communal experience.
It's the shared experience of people you don't even know, but we're all laughing at the same time. We're all crying at the same time. We're all feeling, we're all lifted, we're all scared. It's an incredible thing, not only to be an audience within that, but to be a filmmaker and the puppeteer of that.
When you're with other people and you have the same feeling at the same time, that's really exciting.
Where else do you get to have a sound blasting like that, right? Or have an image that big in front of you? It's a magical place because of that.
Okay, so I don't mean to rain on our parade of loving the theaters right now, but I don't think that the fundamental dynamics of this industry are really going to shift because of this list or anything else, right? I mean, streamers are still going to be dominant. Movies are still going to be competing with these short little bursts of video on our phone. I mean, it does make you kind of wonder, like, in 25 years, we're not going to be listing the best 100 TikToks of the 21st century.
I mean, I'd watch them. It would be quick. But, you know, at the same time, things do move at the speed of light. Will TikTok even be around in 10 years for as dominant as it is now? It's hard to tell. But I do guarantee you that movies will be. They've been around for as long as they have. The process of watching them may continue to change. You know, the way the movie industry has changed over the last 10 years has been dizzying, but movies will be around. And when you have that really wonderful, specific experience with a movie where you feel like a movie gets you and you get a movie in a way that is surprising and maybe even reveals something about yourself, well, who'd pass that experience up?
Kyle, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm glad that I could bring a little bit of fun to the Daily.